Aaron, you want to start a podcast? Welcome to the MORDORK podcast. You may not be able to simply walk into Mordor, but you can simply watch the Mordorks.
Gotta fix that. Sorry. Yeah, hi. So welcome to the MORDORK podcast. My name is Aaron.
I'm Carson, one of the Mordorks. There are two Mordorks. It's us.
There's two?
Yeah.
There's two of us?
I think so. I think I passed basic math. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Aaron?
Well, I'd like to first say that this is our first attempt at making a podcast, in case you couldn't tell. And this really isn't a podcast because it's video, so...
Vidcast.
It's a vidcast.
I don't know if that's accurate.
Come up with that name?
No, I doubt it. It's probably been like 50 people.
Yeah, at least. Alright, so the way this works is we're going to start off with some news that pertains to movies, TV, comics, video games, stuff like that. We're going to talk about the news that has happened over the past week or so, and then we're going to basically just talk about that, and then we're going to move on to like our main topic, which for this week is Civil War. So if you haven't seen Civil War, don't watch this because we're going to talk about all the spoilers and all that stuff.
And you don't want this spoiled for you because, spoiler alert, Civil War was really good.
How dare you? Okay, so what I have written down for the news.
Very official. You have notes.
I take notes, man. That's how I roll. Okay, so the first thing that I saw was there is a new Slender Man movie being filmed, or planning on being filmed, starting this fall. Do you know what a Slender Man is?
I do. I played Slender on the computer. It was quite an interesting game, especially whenever you're playing it with friends who are not very, shall we say, brave, and you're playing it at 3 in the morning with the lights off.
I feel like you're talking about yourself here.
No, I'm talking about our good mutual friend Jacob. He was very fun to mess with while playing Slender.
Everyone knows Jacob.
You guys don't. I mean, actually, you probably do, because if you're watching this, you probably know us.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, hi. Jacob.
Hi. Okay, yeah. So, was it scary?
I mean, I don't really think it's scary, but...
It's kind of weird.
But it was enjoyable for what it was, a quick little game, and... I don't know, I mean, I could see a movie if it had a really good director... pulling it off.
I don't know if it has a director. Well, it's filming, so it does have. I don't know who it is though.
I don't know who it is either. You were the news guy. Way to do your research.
Dang.
But I don't know. I just kind of foresee it becoming just kind of a generic horror movie, not anything really special. I think it could be if it got a good director, but I just don't think it will be.
Would this count as a video game movie? Because isn't Slender based on like a creepypasta or something? Yeah,
I wouldn't consider it. I mean, there is a game based on the creature, but I don't think that qualifies it for a video game movie.
There we go. Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just fiddling with the camera. Hi. Alright, so...
The camera is not very good.
Yeah, our camera sucks. And also, for future episodes, this will probably be done over Skype because we live in 2 different places, and that's just the cards we've been dealt, you know. And we got a royal flush, and we're gonna shoot the moon.
What does shoot the moon mean?
I don't know. I'm just using card terms.
I've never been the extent of my gambling card playing knowledge has been wiping my friend out at Buffalo Wild Wings on the electronic poker game.
I'm glad you said
had no money.
I'm glad you said out at the end of that sentence.
What?
I'm glad you said out. Wiping your friend out. Because it could have gone so much worse.
I don't want to think about that.
We're 5. Anyways, alright, so next news. Sharon Stone. Do you know Sharon Stone?
Yeah, she was in that horrible Catwoman movie, if I am not mistaken.
She was. I've never seen that Catwoman.
Neither have I. I just know it's horrible, and I'm glad I haven't seen it.
Yeah, our goal in life is to watch every comic book movie.
Speak for yourself, there are some that I just refuse to watch.
Well, I'm going to force him to watch every comic book movie eventually.
Like, I will watch every good comic book movie, even some that aren't good, and I will probably watch them multiple times, but there are just some where I draw the line.
Would you watch the one where Cap has rubber ears?
I would watch that one for entertainment, like so bad it's good.
Yeah, that's actually what you could say about most comic book movies, to be honest. Most so bad they're good.
But you know, in that movie, he like steals cars by pretending to be sick. And I actually did that once, and
really,
it worked.
Oh, yeah, that's right, you did. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like if you ever want to steal a car from somebody who's driving, just pretend that you are sick, have them pull the car over so you can get out and throw up. Like, wait until they get concerned and come out of the car to check on you. Then just make a mad dash to the car, hop in the driver's seat, and take off. And also hope that they left the keys in the car.
You heard it here first, folks. Steal cars from your friends by pretending to be sick, thereby using their goodwill against them. Because that's how friends work.
It's true. That's how every friendship I've ever had works.
This moment has been brought to you by Terrible People Incorporated. Okay, so anyway, Sharon Stone. She has been reported to have a small part in the MCU.
Good, she gets to redeem herself.
Yeah, so do you know, if it's a small part, then it may not actually necessarily be a comic book role, but if she was in a comic book role, who would you see her as?
I'm going to be honest, I don't know enough about Sharon Stone to actually say who she would.
Well, she is a woman.
I know that there are a lot of women in comic books.
Yes. She's... How old is she? Like 40-something? 50-something? 50-something?
I honestly don't know. Like I said, I know almost nothing about Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
Except that she was in
I don't know.
Catwoman.
Who would she be good? I don't know. And I don't think it says... Does it say what movie she was going to be in? I forgot to look at it, too. I'm really bad at this, guys. So, yeah. Okay, another thing. Captain Marvel is reported to maybe have her first appearance in Avengers Infinity War Part 1.
Okay, that's something that we've suspected for a while now.
Yeah, because the release date for Captain Marvel's solo movie placed it after Part 1. Is that correct, I think?
I believe so. I believe it's between Part 1 and Part 2. So.
Right, so they're going to do another like Black Panther thing, where they introduce a character and then give them their own solo movie.
Yeah. By the way, did you hear the news that they are thinking about changing the name of the next Avengers movie? Because they say...
Of Part 1 or 2?
Possibly both, because they are kind of their own movies, so they shouldn't be called Part 1 and Part 2. So they're thinking about giving them different names.
I like that better, because the whole Part 1, Part 2 thing of movies, I feel like has kind of run its course a bit. Like, it was cool... I don't remember what the first movie was to do. Was it Harry Potter?
I think it was Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
Like, the first one to actually have, like, Part 1 in the title.
Right, and then a lot of movies started copying that, like Twilight and... Hunger Games and other things. So yeah, I feel like that's probably a better choice to make, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but they haven't cast her yet, apparently. So we're still trying to wonder like who's going to play her, because I think there's a lot of good choices been thrown around.
I think maybe Keira Knightley. I mean, she's got range, or whatever Deadpool said at the end of
she's got range.
His movie. But she will be playing Cable in the next Deadpool movie, so she will be unavailable for that role.
I don't know. A lot of people keep saying Ronda Rousey just because she's kind of been campaigning for it, I guess. And I don't know. I mean, that would be an interesting, different sort of choice because she's not really an actor, but.
I mean, I would have to see, like, I don't want this to be like a Hulk Hogan thing.
Yeah.
They, like, think that we're a professional fighter, which...
I don't know, it worked for...
Hulk Hogan even count as a professional fighter?
No, I wouldn't...
It
worked for The Rock. It worked for Dwayne Johnson.
I mean, there are more stories of failure than success in that.
Yeah.
Of somebody who fights for a living and then...
Don't let him know! It's not real!
And then goes... into acting, and it doesn't work out well. But if she can act well, I don't know, if she's campaigning for it, I like it whenever actors like their roles. And so, whenever an actor is actively campaigning for a role, I tend to say if they are right for it, give it to them.
Yeah.
Because I just think that if they're passionate about it and really want to do it, then they're going to give a better performance than somebody who's just cashing in a paycheck.
Yeah, I don't know. I think whoever they choose, like, Marvel's been really good about casting.
Oh, they've been amazing about casting.
And not just, like, casting people who are good for the role, but are also, like, able to kind of keep up the persona in a sense, you know, because like a lot of the people that they hire are really good at doing like, you know, press stuff or relating to the public, you know, because they know that, you know, kids actually see them as those characters, so they want to be able to keep that sort of, you know, imagination going.
Is there really any difference between Tony Stark and Robert Downey Jr.?
There really just doesn't seem to be, you know. It's crazy. He's really made that role his own.
Yeah, I can't see, like with the Incredible Hulk we had Norton, and then in Avengers we obviously had Ruffalo, and I didn't feel like it was a big deal to change, even though I liked both of them in that role.
Yeah.
I really can't see somebody else becoming Tony Stark.
I don't know, like if they ever, like they'll eventually recast him, I think, but when they do, it's going to be
I'm kind of hoping I'm honestly hoping he dies in Infinity War. I want somebody to die in Infinity War or whatever they end up calling it.
Yeah.
And I think that Tony Stark is probably the right character.
Yeah. I don't know. It's speculation right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like speculating. I like coming up with theories and things.
Yeah.
And I like listening to other people's.
Whoever gets the Captain Marvel role, like if it's Ronda Rousey, who, let's be clear, could absolutely kill us both, like in real life, if she wanted to.
Yeah, but that's not saying that much.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I almost accidentally kill myself on a daily basis. Just
well, I was telling you this
getting
story.
out of bed or
Yeah, I was telling you this story yesterday. Like I went to the gym because I'm just a super health nut like that. And you know those elliptical bikes that you, like the stationary bikes?
I do know them.
You do? Alright. I was riding on it and the handlebars started coming loose, and then all of a sudden they like slid forward, and like I like fell forward, and like there was this what the handlebars were on was like this big like metal pole, and it was like sharp, and like I scratched my side like all up and down here. It still really hurts, so please send me money for insurance.
Send it to 1-800 we don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, and I don't know why I said 1-800. That's a phone number.
Yeah. Okay, so the next thing, Black Widow is said to, Kevin Feige said that Marvel is very interested in giving her her own standalone movie, which people have been asking for a long time.
It's about dang time.
Yeah, like she's been in the MCU longer than a lot of these characters.
She's been in the MCU longer than Thor.
Yeah, like it's been longer than since
Captain America.
It's been since Iron Man 2 is when she first
which was the third movie in the MCU.
Right. So, and then after like, you know, Avengers and especially Winter Soldier, people have been saying, you know, this is a good character. Let's see more of her.
Yeah, and it would be another female character, you know, giving more female representation in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Or bigger representation.
I'm totally for this. I just don't know, like, what do you think it would be? Would it be like another spy sort of thriller, like Civil War or Winter Soldier was?
I think it would be. I think it would focus on her past, because we've got glimpses of her past in Avengers: Age of Ultron. We got kind of a glimpse into the Black Widow program in the first season of Agent Carter. Is that right?
Yeah, we met the other person who was a black or a yeah.
And so I think that that would be what it would have to focus on. Would be her past.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Would it be like, so would it take place in the past maybe? Like,
I think
because we don't really know how old she is. Like, are we assuming she's as old as she looks, or is she like in the comics where she's actually like 70 years old because she's been around since World War II or something?
I would tend to think that in the MCU they'd probably make her the age she looks, because Scarlett Johansson is playing her, and nobody wants to think about somebody that beautiful being that old, because then we get into a bunch of creepy cougar territory. Thinking we already kind of crossed the male. What's a male version of a cougar?
A Black Panther.
Yeah, we've already got that with Steve Rogers. We don't need.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is. Yeah. That, you know. Okay. Well, we'll get to that later. Yeah. So Black Widow standalone movie. Could be good.
I'm down for that.
I'm down for that.
But I think as far as like if it takes place in the past, like before Avengers, or if it takes place like post Avengers, would kind of depend on where it falls in the Marvel movie lineup.
Yeah, yeah. If they do decide to go the route of her being like older than she looks, you know, I think it'd be really cool to see like an old Cold War sort of setting, you know, like even if it wasn't like the 30s, it could be like, or it could be like the 80s or something, you know.
The end of the Cold War.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot they could do with that character.
Yeah, she's.
I kind of think that Marvel may have missed out on an opportunity because I feel like right now would be the best time given Civil War and what happened in it and the ending. Which we're not talking about yet, but just given where she is in that, because I feel like this would be like a good time to have her by herself. But yet, I feel like now there's not time to squeeze her in, so they're gonna have to wait a while.
Yeah, if this does happen, it'll probably be after the Avengers movies.
Whenever they go into Phase 4, right. Also called Now What?
Yeah, now what?
That's honestly what I'm thinking of Phase 4 as being, because it's like everything is building up to the Infinity storyline. Infinity Stone or Gauntlet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Storyline, so it's just kind of like, once that ends, what's next?
I know.
I mean, I'm excited to see, but...
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited to see what actually ends up happening, but I guess we'll have to wait. Okay, so the last thing has to do with the other superhero face-off movie of the year, Batman vs. Superman. And although we're not really here to talk about what we thought of it, we could just give a short little explanation for where we stand on this movie. I personally... It's one of those movies that I've been incredibly back and forth on. Like, I liked a lot of it, I liked parts of it, and then other parts I couldn't reconcile with. And I'm just kind of caught in this limbo of not sure whether I like it or not. And it's basically just made me think, you know, whether or not it's a good movie or not. In my opinion, it's completely nebulous. I change my mind practically on a daily basis on this. But you, on the other hand, have a different view.
You see, whenever I am a fan of something and it gets adapted into a movie, I'm going to do one of two things. I am either going to be more lenient and be more forgiving of its problems, or I'm going to be a harsher critic. And I can never predict which one. It goes back and forth. In Batman vs. Superman's case, I am a huge fan of Batman. I grew up with Superman. I've been looking forward to this movie for very long. I ended up being a harsher critic. I liked half of it, hated half of it, and that ended up averaging out to I don't care for it. I could kind of see how people could like it, but for me, it failed to understand its main characters and what makes them great on a fundamental level. Yeah,
I've got to agree with some of that, which sucks too, because I really wanted to love this movie. You know?
I mean, if I say Batman vs. Superman wasn't very good and Civil War was great, I'm going to end up sounding like a Marvel fanboy, and that's what DC fans are going to say. But
because all we care about is picking sides.
But the thing is, I like both. I like DC and Marvel. And if anything, I'm biased for DC because I grew up with DC.
Yeah.
I grew up with DC and Spider-Man. And then as I got older, through Spider-Man, I got introduced to the wider Marvel universe. And I ended up falling in love with that too. But
yeah,
a very large part of me wants DC to be winning. You know, be winning.
I know.
But they're not, because Marvel is doing a better job, and I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I want both companies to do well, because I want to get twice as many great superhero movies.
I know, like, there's no reason to have this weird rivalry, which I think a lot of people just do it sort of like, just for fun, you know, but some people take it way serious.
Yeah, like, I've made jokes about the rivalry, but I honestly want both companies to succeed, because if they both succeed, then we as viewers get a better experience.
Everybody wins, guys.
They both make money, and we all get more movies that we like.
Exactly. Okay, but that does segue into what we're talking about today, into this last news bit, which is Ben Affleck possibly going to be given a bigger role in the production of the Justice League movie as an executive producer or some kind, and he's said to be, quote, supporting Zack Snyder in this sort of role he's going to be taking. Do you think that means that DC's lost faith in Zack Snyder as their guy?
No, I have.
Because they've slowly been booting him out of more leadership roles and kind of giving other people more hands-on experience with him. So it feels like they're kind of not, you know.
I mean, I kind of feel like, yeah, you kind of, even though Batman vs Superman, like, brought in a lot of money, it also spent a lot of money, and so like the Warner Brothers and DC aren't making as much money off of it as they thought,
right?
Because there was like what, a 68% drop in
which doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, because if a lot of people go to see it the first week, that means that there's not going to be as many people to see it the next week. But
well, the thing is, like, Star Wars or something didn't have like that drop because people were going back to see it over and over again. I mean, it didn't make over $1 billion because just because everybody went to go see it once. There were a lot of people, myself included, who went to go see Star Wars a lot of times.
Yeah.
I did not go back to see Batman vs Superman because I did not think it was worth going to see it again in theaters, and I feel like a lot of people shared that.
Yeah.
So I just feel like Warner Brothers like sees all the negative reviews while Marvel is continuing to get good to great reviews.
Yeah.
Sees what Zack Snyder has been able to do compared to what the directors at Marvel have been able to do, and they're realizing that there's something wrong, so they need to maybe try something different with different people maybe at the helm, or at least having more control.
Yeah, like for the Batman movie, Ben Affleck is directing, and as far as I know, Zack Snyder is not at all involved in that movie. And giving Ben Affleck more of a role, I think, is probably a good move.
Just because he is a good writer and director.
Yeah, and plus he seems to actually have a genuine interest in this, as you know. So I think that's probably a good choice. But also, speaking of Ben Affleck, it's apparently he, or someone speaking on his behalf, said that he was incredibly disappointed with how Batman vs Superman has fared so far, like both critically and how fans have reacted to it.
Like, is he saying he's disappointed with he's saying more he's disappointed by how people feel about it than the actual movie itself?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's like he's disappointed with how it turned out. Because he went on a huge press tour saying how it was going to be better than Daredevil, which was his last superhero movie, which didn't do so great.
I mean,
either.
I'm trying to think I think he did that because I think I was able to sit through Batman vs Superman. I can't get through Daredevil.
Really?
There are some scenes.
Really?
I always turn it off at the scene where he and Elektra are fighting in the playground. I can't get past that.
Yeah.
I can't stand to watch it. Especially after the Netflix show, which is dark and amazing.
Yeah. I mean, back then, Daredevil, that was the only Daredevil we had. But, and I have a weird affinity for superhero movies from, like, the early 2000s. But, no, I understand that. And apparently, Batman vs. Superman has a lower rating on, like, Rotten Tomatoes than even Daredevil has.
That's interesting.
Which is incredible.
Because, like I said, I didn't like Batman vs. Superman, but I can sit through it.
Yeah, I've never seen you had such an adverse reaction to a movie immediately after it was over. Because immediately after that, what happened. I have several things.
Well, I always have bad things to say about a movie immediately after, because I can go on for hours about problems with my favorite
But you were serious
movie.
about this one, dude.
There has only been 4 movies in my life that I can think of that really made me angry, because maybe angry is a bit of an exaggeration. But
It's angry. It's anger.
That I was that disappointed to actually feel kind of betrayed.
Yeah.
Even though that's a really stupid feeling, and it was Batman vs Superman, and the 3 Hobbit movies. I have very mixed feelings on the 3 Hobbit movies. We'll probably have to eventually, like for Hobbit Day or something.
We'll cover that. We'll cover those eventually too.
I have a lot of rants, and I also have a lot of praise for those because, like I said, I have very mixed feelings.
In case you can't tell, he likes Lord of the Rings. Hence the name of the podcast.
Or vidcast, or whatever the heck we're calling it. But anyway, but with the Hobbit films, I was so excited for them that, immediately after they were over, and for a while, I couldn't, even though I knew the faults, I couldn't admit them.
Yeah.
And then, eventually I was like, okay, these are kind of disappointing. I mean, they have moments that I love and moments that I hate, but they should be better than what they are. So I feel like going into Batman vs Superman, I actually remember like trying to convince myself that it was a good movie or that I could overlook its faults, but then like in the middle of the movie thinking, no, you did this with The Hobbit, don't make that mistake again, because you're just going to be more disappointed a month or two later whenever you realize how all of its faults. So that's a little bit of what was going on in my head during that time.
Yeah, and so yeah, like I said, BVS, it could have. I'm still torn on it. Like, there's definitely things that are wrong. I'm just not sure.
We were supposed to talk about Civil War.
Yeah.
We're talking about
well,
BVS.
we are going to, because speaking of Batman vs Superman, let's now talk about something completely different. How about that? So yesterday we went and saw Captain America: Civil War, and it was pretty great. Would you say?
Before going into Captain America: Civil War, I had 3 movies that were like competing for my top spot, my top Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
I can't decide between them. They were the original Iron Man, Captain America: Winter Soldier, and Guardians of the Galaxy. After seeing Civil War, I have a 4th up there.
Really?
It's like
so it's like a 4-way tie.
It's like a 4-way tie. I'm so bad at picking favorites.
Yeah, no, I am too.
But it's up there. I thought it was really good. I thought it did a lot of things really well. Not a perfect movie, because I do have a few small things, a few nitpicks, but overall I thought it was a really great comic book movie, and a great Captain America movie, and a great Avengers movie.
It was a good movie that kind of incorporated all of the preceding things that made every other MCU movie great. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think this replaces my previous #1 favorite comic book movie of all time, because I think this one has just done just about everything I could ever hope or want from a comic book movie. So I guess before we really get into what we thought of the story in detail, we'll just give an overview of basically, I'm just going to say, like I said, it was my favorite movie. It's like it's up there. I can't decide. Can't decide, but it's up there. And if it's not like tied for my favorite, it's like right below them. Like it's barely below them. Yeah. Okay. So I guess right now what we're gonna do is talk about what the movie involved. So this is all of the spoilers and things. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it.
Maybe twice.
Because we immensely recommend it very much.
Yes.
All right. So that being said, what is this movie about?
This movie is about Captain America and a Civil War. I kind of zoned out after that. I think I got the...
Yeah.
No, basically, to put it in simple terms, wow, there was a lot going on.
There really was.
Like, that's the thing. It juggled a lot of things very well. And I feel like it also gave everybody's some character, and we understood their perspective.
Yeah.
Like, and why they would make the decisions they'd make. Even if we didn't agree with them, we understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and there was a lot of plot lines going everywhere, but they all eventually tied together, and that's what was pretty amazing, because that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
With all these different characters and all their different things, it all felt like it mattered in some way, and doing that is not an easy feat. And so the fact that it came off so well as it did, I think is amazing. But
basically, people are tired of all the destruction that superhero battles are causing, so they want to make the Avengers answer to the United Nations, because so far the Avengers have been acting without oversight or any hierarchy over them. But some of them are in favor of this and feel like that's probably wise. It will keep... And even if they don't, the government will eventually force them to, so they might as well do it now. But Captain America and some others are not so certain, because they're afraid that either they'll eventually be sent in to do something that they don't think is right, or they won't be sent in whenever they're needed to be sent in. and people will die, and so Captain America doesn't really want to answer to a committee of a bunch of governments because all these different governments have different agendas, and he feels like he and his team are the best to make a moral decision while on the and so he's uncertain, and then all of that comes to a head whenever the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, comes back.
Old One-Arm McGee.
And starts apparently causing trouble, and the rift that was started with the debate on whether they should sign the Accords.
It just makes things go way out, get blown way out of
proportion. Yes, thank you. I kind of lost my train of thought, so thank you for saving me.
Yeah, well...
And eventually culminates in the Civil War, which is more of a civil battle. And
yeah, that's the first thing, is that like Civil War in the comics was spread out over a long period of time, but this was more like a few days, kind of.
But I could still see it as a Civil War, because not like so much a physical war, but an ideological war. And this film, just like the comics, raised a lot of moral questions, and I like that. And they're not questions with easy answers.
And that's the thing I was kind of hoping what they would do, right, was kind of show both sides. Because I was afraid at first that this being called a Captain America movie, that you immediately side with Captain America. But Tony Stark does make a lot of good points in this movie.
I could actually argue that before Bucky comes in, the movie actually does a better job of presenting Captain America's side. Or, I mean, excuse me, Iron Man's side. Because I feel like more time was devoted to his side.
Yeah.
Possibly to counteract the fact that it's called Captain America.
I know. But, it was incredibly important to do that, too.
In fact, one of my small nitpicks was I wish that they had given Captain America and his side a little bit more development before the Winter Soldier came back in.
Because once Bucky gets into it, then it kind of feels like it takes their side takes more of a focus on, you know, protecting him and, oh my gosh, Bucky, you're my friend.
Yeah, like it focuses more on the friendship of Steve Rogers and Bucky Barnes. But I don't know, Captain America brings up a very good point about, at one point where he says, what if they send us in as I've already said, what if they send us in somewhere that we don't want to go, where we don't feel like we'll be doing the right thing, or what if they don't send us in whenever they're needed. And I felt like that was a good point. I would have liked a little bit more development on that.
Yeah.
Because I do think that that's a good point. I mean, what if the nations decided to do something that wasn't very moral? I mean, are
you saying you don't fully trust the government, Carson?
I don't fully trust anybody. And so,
what on earth would give you that?
I felt like that needed a little bit more development, but in the grand scheme of things, that's a small nitpick. And I did like how kind of Spider-Man actually kind of
Spider-Man
unknowingly echoed Captain America whenever he's talking to Tony, because Tony kind of convinced Spider-Man to join his side without Spider-Man knowing any of the real details.
Yeah.
So I actually felt like if Captain America and Spider-Man really talked, or if Spider-Man knew all the details, he would have sided with Captain America in this movie.
Ooh, that's a good point.
Because if you recall, whenever Tony asks him why he does that, he kind of starts talking about how if he has the ability to do something and he doesn't do it, then and bad things happen, then it's his fault for not acting.
Yeah.
Which is what Captain America was saying with what if they don't send us in to a situation where we are needed, I will feel responsible. And so that to me that really echoes what Captain America was saying, and so I just was kind of like, that's clever.
Were you expecting him to say, with great power comes great responsibility?
I was going back and forth, but I do like how, because we know that he's talking about how he had the power to stop Uncle Ben's killer and he didn't. Yeah. But they didn't make it too blatant.
Right, I thought it was a good thing
at this point,
they didn't get into too big a detail, because that wasn't necessary in this movie.
Yeah, and at this point, we've got 2 Spider-Man origin stories, and everybody saw the first one.
I know, everyone knows.
And a lot of people saw the second one, so it's like...
Everyone knows who Spider-Man is.
Like, so I feel like Spider-Man's origins are up there with Batman and Superman for how well they're known.
He's become like one of those main iconic characters in pop culture that everyone's already pretty aware of who he is.
Growing up, Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man were like my three big ones until I got introduced to the larger DC and Marvel universes through those characters. But so in my mind, like those are the big three.
Yeah, well,
at least before Avenger.
Before, yeah, because now everyone knows everything about.
Now it's actually getting like cool to. No, or maybe not cool, but it's becoming more acceptable to be passionate about superheroes and things like that because Avengers and all the Marvel movies are making a crap ton of money.
Yeah, and they're like actually good too, you know.
Yeah,
like they're good movies, so anyone can enjoy them. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But so back to Civil War, we get introduced to two new characters, Spider-Man, which we already talked about, and Black Panther, which I was super surprised at how much I like Black Panther in this movie.
They do. My collar keeps falling down and it's annoying me. We can see ourselves, so
yeah,
I can see myself in all my awkwardness. So sorry if you're tempted to look down my shirt. I don't know why my collar is doing that.
Are you trying to seduce the audience?
What audience? Anyway.
Yeah, Black Panther was awesome in this movie,
and even though he had to share screen time with so many characters. He was really great because not only was he cool and could fight well, but I understood his motivation completely.
Yeah.
Honestly, he might actually have some of the strongest motivation of any of the characters.
Exactly,
and he even had his own character arc. It wasn't like he just has a motivation and goes after it. He actually...
He learns a lesson.
Yes. Yeah. And that's... Wow, it's really hard not to compare this to Batman vs. Superman because they did come out so quickly.
Because we both have comic book monarchs in this. Well, is Wonder Woman a monarch? She's a princess. Same thing.
I mean, they came out so close together, and they're so similar in concept. But Civil War just did the concept so much better. Yeah. But what I was saying was some of the problems with Batman vs. Superman that I didn't even realize, but that by listening to other reviews, I kind of realized was that. It introduces a lot of questions, but none of the characters really seem to learn. But at least Superman doesn't seem to learn anything.
No, really. He just dies.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, but dies.
Oh well, that's true. But he's not dead. No one dies.
But Batman kind of learns a lesson, but it kind of doesn't feel really natural.
Does he though?
Well, I mean, he learns the importance of forming a team.
But he doesn't learn
it doesn't feel really natural, whereas Black Panther, it feels natural. Like, he learned something in this movie, and it kind of feels like it grows out of the narrative, rather than just being hammered in to fit the narrative.
Well, and the acting talent of Chadwick Boseman, I think is his name. He just super delivers on the believability of this guy, on his like you said, his arc from starting off as a vengeful person, seeing vengeance doesn't always answer their questions, so I'll just not kill you, I guess. Because at the end of the movie, when Zemo, who is the main villain in this character, who it turns out kind of orchestrated this whole thing by letting Bucky Barnes, or by framing Bucky Barnes for a crime he didn't commit, which then kind of just added fuel to the fire of this whole, superhero registration sort of thing. And
Sokovia Accords. In the movie.
Yeah, and so because he did that, he wanted all the Avengers to kind of defeat themselves, which is kind of a used cliche sort of thing, but it also
let's
works,
be honest, they did that in Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron.
Right, yeah.
But
they always turn on each other.
I didn't mind, because
and just to be fair, like, the plan completely worked.
Like, he kind of wins.
Yeah, he does. And he doesn't even kill himself. Like, he tries to kill himself, but he doesn't die. So he's still alive. So we can see him come back.
We can finally see him wear that purple sock on his face.
Hat. Yeah.
Like in the comics. But, what did you think of Zemo?
I thought, okay, obviously Marvel does not have a great track record with their villains. Like, they're never, like, bad villains. They're just, like,
they're
forgettable, or bland. There's only a few exceptions, I think, like
Loki, Wilson Fisk.
Ultron, I thought was good.
I liked Ultron too. I also like David Tennant's Kilgrave.
Right, but then you mainly just, for the other villains, you mainly just have angry businessmen who go crazy at the end of the movie.
giant evil entity.
Or giant evil entity.
Who wants to be evil.
Yeah,
like,
so... Yeah, but this guy, you know, he was a little bit of a sympathetic character because you find out that, oh, his family died in Sokovia, so now he's like, you know, trying to bring vengeance on the Avengers, basically. And when he finds out that he succeeds, essentially, you know, he's like, well, I guess I'm done. I'm just going to shoot myself now. And Black Panther keeps him from shooting himself because Black Panther previously wanted to kill him, but then he saw that vengeance isn't the answer after all. Isn't that right, Carson?
Yeah, and then I think there also is an element of vengeance of like him stopping him because he's like the living aren't done. The living aren't.
Oh, that's such a cool thing to say. Because dang it, that's a cool guy.
Because I think he's like, no, you don't get to run out. You don't get to shoot yourself, and you have to answer for your crimes. But but I'm not going to kill you.
Right.
So I do think that Black Panther did learn something and grow as a character.
Yeah, but I'm so excited to see Panther's movie now because, like I said, I wasn't sure if he was going to be just kind of another person and I wasn't a huge Panther fan to start with, but
you racist jerk.
Yeah, great. Now that's out there on the internet. But seriously though, he was so cool in this movie. He's like a smooth, cool dude, and I'm so down with that.
But yet he was cool, but he also felt like a human.
And he also seemed like the most mature of everyone in this movie. He seemed like the most calm-headed, you know, because everyone else was either fighting or quipping, and he's the only one who actually seemed to stay focused on the task, you know. So I was totally.
How did you feel about the clipping in this movie? Because
there was enough that makes it kind of breaks up the heaviness. I feel like some Marvel movies sort of go a little too far sometimes.
So that's actually why I was bringing it up.
Yeah,
just to see where...
I think for the people who actually did it, like Ant-Man and Spider-Man, you know, they were the more lighthearted characters in this. I thought that it worked for them, because they also weren't as invested as the others, you know? Yeah, so I thought it worked.
There was one quip that kind of... Or I don't know if it would technically qualify as a quip, but it's a joke.
What was it?
That kind of bothered me. It was whenever a Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting on opposite sides, and I think it's Black Widow who says, "We're still friends, right?" And Hawkeye's like, "It depends on how hard you hit me."
How
hard you hit. I'm kind of like, wait, that
they're fighting.
Or I mean, I could see like that in a training exercise, but to me that kind of like this is supposed to be like a tragic thing that the team has broken up and that they are fighting each other. So I kind of felt like. And Black Widow and Hawkeye have been friends for so long that I kind of felt like that joke kind of reduced the tragedy of it, but yet...
I think it just shows that they weren't as invested as everyone else, and they were just kind of there just because. Kind of the way they've been in all these other movies. They've just kind of been
I can see people arguing that that's not a big thing, and it's not a big thing. It's just something that I was like, I think I personally would have liked it better if that line hadn't happened. And then whenever Scarlet Witch, like, helps Hawkeye defeat Black Widow, she just says the line that she says in the movie, "You were pulling your punches." You know, like, without that, basically keep it the same, just without those two little lines from Black Widow and
You heard it here first, folks. No jokes allowed.
I did not say that. I actually love the joke where Captain America kisses... Agent 13, and then both Bucky and Sam are sitting in the car watching.
I loved how his two sidekicks were like fighting for like leg room in the car. That was just
I liked their relationship.
Yeah, and then Falcon. There's this one point in the movie where Spider-Man knocks out or hits or attacks both of them at the same time, and Bucky Barnes is able to send Spider-Man flying with. What was it? Was it a gun or something? He hit him and he like fell out the window, and they're both laying on the ground. And Falcon's basically like, "Why couldn't you do that earlier?"
No, wait, wasn't it Falcon who like uses Red Falcon?
Oh, that's right. It was
the little robotic Red Falcon.
Yeah. And Winter Soldier's like, "Why couldn't you do that earlier?" And Falcon's like, "I hate you." Because when you think about it, this was all kind of... Like, it wasn't all Bucky's fault, but it certainly... And it wasn't really his fault in the first place, but he surely didn't help it any at all. So, you know, they do a good job of making you kind of kind of hate Bucky for kind of being at the center of all this, but then you realize that it's not really his fault. He's just as much a victim as anyone else, which I think it was well done.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to kind of what I said earlier, where even if you don't like somebody's opinion or decision or don't agree with it, you can still see where they're coming from and why they feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about the thing that I really wanted to talk about.
Okay, guys. Screw this.
Are Scarlet Witch and Vision gonna get together like they do in the comics?
Yeah, we had a little bit of hinting of that too.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, they're actually maybe setting up this? Like, because that's something from the comics.
I always wondered, like...
how that works.
Yeah, it just seems like a weird
it's totally weird. I also like how Vision for like half the movie was just wearing like civilian clothing over his red skin.
He just decided to blend in a little bit more, despite the fact that he has a big purple face, or maroon face.
I don't know, but I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I also really liked the beginning where I like how they kind of kept the idea of from the comics of a superhero mission goes wrong at the beginning of the comics and people die.
Yeah. I
mean, obviously in the Civil War movie, it's like I think they say 11 people die, and like in the comics, it's like 600.
Yeah, it's like people are way.
So they reduced it, but
yeah,
you know, it still keeps that idea.
Yeah.
And we got a Crossbones cameo.
Crossbones.
Kind of.
Yeah, so he was in there for a little bit, and they blew up.
He was kind of like a Batroc in Winter Soldier, where he's like a villain they throw in and it's kind of cool, but he's not like a big part of the movie.
Yeah, I was cool with that, and they got the same actor, which was interesting.
Yeah,
just for that one part to be horribly disfigured and then explode. But were you happy with how the movie ended?
I was very happy. I like that they didn't do a Batman versus Superman.
Yes.
Where they because
if they wanted to do something like that, it would have been in this movie. Because in the comics, Civil War does, essentially right after at least it doesn't end, but right after, as a direct result almost, Captain America is shot and assassinated. Yeah. And so there were some people initially thinking, well, are they going to do that in this movie? Is someone going to die? Turns out no one dies.
I thought what I was saying about Batman vs. Superman was I like that they don't, amend their differences completely and get back together and fight a bigger evil. It's at the end of the movie, there's still a gap. Captain America and his team are on the run, and Tony Stark and his team are now answering to the United Nations, and so Cap's team are now full-on vigilantes, and Cap kind of does something that kind of bridges the gap a little bit, but by giving Tony that message, but not a lot. There is still that rift, and I don't expect to see it, and that rift's not going to be healed until Thanos comes in, and they kind of have to, or else they're both going to be destroyed.
Yeah, you feel like Tony kind of Cap doesn't feel like he has changed his opinion at all, but Tony kind of feels like at the end of the movie he's kind of come over a bit, just moved a little bit more towards the center of this whole conflict a bit. He's not fully all in with the whole thing after all.
They both recognize that that it is kind of a bad thing and a sad thing that they've had this falling out.
Right.
And I feel like there's at least some part of both of them that wants to heal the gap, but they're not sure how things could ever go back to the way they were.
Right, and that's kind of leaves an interesting question open for how will things come back? Will they be together again for Avengers Infinity War? Because
they're going to have to be.
We're not going to see most of these people until then.
They're going to... It will be... my opinion is that it will be Thanos, and it will be in the Infinity War, or whatever they end up calling it. Mm-hmm. And it's just... The threat is so great that Iron Man's official team is going to have to call on Captain America's vigilante team for help, and that.
But who does Iron Man actually have now? Because eventually Black Panther kind of went back to Wakanda, and Black Widow actually went over to Cap's side. So who does Iron Man have left? He has Vision.
He has Vision.
He has War Machine, who's
he arguably has War Machine because he could make him like some fake.
Give him robotic legs. That's the fix for any injury in comic books. Just give him a robotic arm or leg, and it's all good.
Yeah, but that's a very good question.
Are they going to see what I think they're going to do? Maybe is have the new characters who are introduced between now and then
join the Avengers.
Join the official Avengers.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So that means, like, who do we really have?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, yeah, is that it? Because he doesn't really seem like the avenging type, you know? Like, I don't know, in the comics he really isn't much, like, he helps, but he's not really much of an Avenger himself.
He's kind of like Batman in the, well, even less than Batman in the Justice League animated series, where Batman's like, I'm not actually a part of the League. But I'll help you out if you give me a call. And then he's like in every episode.
Yeah, exactly.
So Doctor Strange is even less involved with the Avengers than Batman is with the Justice League.
So maybe it's just going to be Tony and Vision kicking around?
I mean, then again, like, if there's not really major threats popping up that are like apparent to everybody, maybe that's all you need. I mean, there was a time whenever Iron Man was pretty much fixing the world by himself.
That's true, yeah. I mean, where's everybody else? Which, you know, another thing, Thor and Hulk obviously aren't in this movie, which they didn't really need to be. You know, they weren't in the comic version, so they weren't in this version, and that makes sense. But, I don't know. I'm thinking, so they're gonna both be in Ragnarok together, Hulk and Thor. So, they'll be back for Infinity War. So I'm interested to see, like, are they going to wonder, hey, why does everyone hate each other? What do we miss?
I'm wondering if, like, maybe Thor could be, and Bruce Banner could kind of be, like, the neutral parties who kind of, like, help.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping to see Nick Fury in this one, too. It just kind of seemed like, y'all stupid, man. That's why
Samuel L. Jackson, why didn't you say that exactly?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he didn't really need to be in it. Is he going to be in any others?
I mean, I'm sure he'll pop up again.
Yeah.
But I haven't been looking for official announcements of what he's going to be in. But
Sam, if you're out there, we miss you, man. Come back.
We need you to take care of those mother effing superheroes. Obviously they can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
As soon as you disappear from Is this the first movie with multiple superheroes that Nick Fury isn't in? At least in Marvel?
Yes. He was in Age of Ultron. Yeah, I guess so.
So, as soon as we have a multi-hero Marvel movie without Nick Fury, it all goes to crap.
Yeah, really. And I also love how Hawkeye... That's actually one thing Hawkeye actually said is, you know, he's only been gone for a day and all of a sudden all this stuff's happening. And I just love how Hawkeye thinks he's actually important. Like I
like Hawkeye.
I actually do too, which is weird because he really doesn't need to be in this movie at all. Because there's this one part where he breaks Scarlet Witch out of, you know, they're keeping her in the Avengers headquarters. But literally anyone could have done that. And I thought it was this really funny scene where Hawkeye actually tries to fight Vision, which, you know, of course isn't going to turn out at all in Hawkeye's favor. But it's funny to see this character that everyone makes fun of for just being the bow and arrow guy actually take on arguably one of the most powerful Avengers so far.
That's something else that I would like. I like how this movie carried on the relationship between Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye, where he was kind of like I don't know how to define it.
Yeah, he had another moment.
A mentor, like
he had another moment where he talked to Scarlet Witch when she was feeling like scared or whatever. Like in that they first did that in Age of Ultron. So that was interesting to see carried over.
Yeah, like that's the thing is that they managed to squeeze I felt like they managed to squeeze a lot of like not just a lot of characters, but a lot of character. Like a bunch of what makes these characters interesting into this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. This movie really succeeded on a lot of levels. Not just like the oh my gosh, it's awesome level, but also like actually progressing the whole overall story of the MCU forward.
It did something to shake things up in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
It made us take these characters that we already knew and continue to care about them and understand why they would fight. And then it gave us what I thought were some really fun fight scenes.
Yeah, the main scene at the airport is the best scene in any comic book movie ever. I think it was.
I don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it was.
What would possibly top that for you?
I'd have to think. Maybe one day we'll do an episode on like our top 10 moments in comic book movie history.
He's terrible at deciding on anything.
I am. I cannot just choose favorites.
Yeah, but
except one day whenever I have children, I'll decide my favorites.
Yeah, well, that's the most important thing to do. So yeah, that was Civil War. We think it's awesome.
Before we ended, let's end on a negative note and see if we're ending it. Let's end on a negative note. Did you have any problems with it?
Not really. Like I said, I think this is my favorite overall comic book movie, #1, period. So I think I mean, obviously, the villain probably could have been more fleshed out.
I actually think I would actually argue that not fleshing out Zemo was a smart move because he does. I actually think that it was clever how they handled him because he was obviously a driving force in the conflict, but he's not really in it for very much. Like he's kind of, for a lot of the movie, he kind of seems like an aside.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't look anything special. He doesn't look like he does in the comics. He just kind of looks like an average guy.
Yeah, he's just a guy that caused mayhem.
Yeah, he does have a human motivation. You know, it's not like I'm just going to do this because I'm evil. It's like, okay, I can see.
I'm an angry businessman that goes mad at the end.
I can see why he kind of does what he does, even though he had something horrible happen to him, and so he went a little crazy. He has a bit of human, and I really felt like that was all they needed. I felt like if they had given him a lot of development or made him really memorable, that would have detracted from the conflict of Captain America and Iron Man and their teams. Like by keeping Zemo kind of a little bit bland or out of the spotlight, they managed to keep the focus on Captain America versus Iron Man, which is where all the real tragedy and emotion of this conflict comes from.
Yeah.
So I felt like that actually worked out better for them. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna walk away from this movie and be like, Zemo was my favorite part. He was the best.
My favorite part.
But I think that might actually be better than the alternative of making him really memorable, and then kind of making people focus more on him and the conflict with him than on the conflict between the actual heroes.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have any problems?
I had a couple. I mentioned the one quip that kind of bothered me.
The deadly quip.
Let's see. For the first half of the movie, this is directed by the Russo brothers, who also did Winter Soldier, which is one of my favorite superhero movies ever. For the first half of the movie, this is really stupid, small complaints. I didn't feel like the camera.
That's what we're all about here.
I didn't feel like the camera work was quite as good as in Winter Soldier. Like during some of the fights, it felt slightly more choppy than Winter Soldier. I think as it went on, the action got smoother. And whenever I say choppy, I just mean just barely.
A lot of cuts.
Yeah, but not to the point where I didn't know what was going on. I always knew what was going on and where things were in relationship to each other. It was just, I felt like, as far as the first half of the movie goes, I felt like Winter Soldier's action scenes had slightly better camera work, but that's a super
little film critic over here.
That's a super small thing, and that's something that only I wouldn't. I feel like that's something only I would say, and some people could even disagree with me on that.
You want to come out of your gold palace and come down here and sit with the rest of us plebs.
Okay, and then this, my final little problem with it was. This is also a really stupid one. Whenever Spider-Man is fighting and he makes a reference to Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah.
He's like, do you guys remember where they're fighting on the ice planet and what they do to those walker things? I'm like, Peter, you're a nerd. You're me with superpowers. You should know that the ice.
He's a tech nerd. You should know other things nerd.
You should know that the ice planet is called Hoth, and you should know that they're you probably also know that they're AT-AT walkers, not...
Yes.
Yeah,
Do you call them AT-ATs or AT-ATs?
I call them AT-ATs, but I could... Well, actually, I go back and forth.
That's the correct way to do it. Actually, I don't know what they officially call them. AT-ATs?
See, it's all-terrain armored transport, right? I think that's what... I've been reading a lot of Star Wars. I've read some Star Wars books lately, so that's why I know that.
I tried reading a book once.
And so, anyway, I'm like, Peter, you know this. At the very least, don't call it a walker thing. Just call it a walker.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's kind of me inserting myself into Spider-Man. Like, if I were in that situation, I would have said Hoth and Walker.
Yes. Well, then don't go watch Civil War, because it has a lot of problems.
Yeah, it doesn't know its Star Wars terminology.
Yeah, so it's 0 out of 5. We don't have a rating system really, so I'm just gonna say it's really good, and
it's 4.9 Captain America shields out of 10. Wait, no, out of 5.
3.5 potted plants out of fish.
Oh, so what was the to finish off? What was the moment where you just went wow, like? Or the biggest wow moment for you, like wow, that was awesome.
That's a good question. I think it was the Spider-Man introduction, because I couldn't get over seeing Spider-Man and Captain America in like the same movie. That was just crazy to me.
That is really cool, but for me, I had to go that moment where Captain America holds up his shield, Iron Man fires his beams at him, and they recreate the cover of one of the Civil War comics, and it just pauses for a moment and just like basks in the glory of the shot. That
actually
made me go, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
There were several moments that made me go, whoa, that's awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
And that's getting harder and harder to do as we get more and more superhero movies. So.
I know, like, how are they going to escalate things from here?
Thanos.
Yeah, that's really all they can go.
It's Phase 4 that I'm worried about, because it's like, what now?
I know, I am interested to see what happens after that. But that's when we'll be old men.
Yes. Just think about showing people, like, who didn't grow up in this time period that are going to be born in like 10 years.
Like my nephew.
Like whenever like Avengers 7 is coming out, and you're like, okay, you've got to watch all the Marvel movies, little Timmy.
Yeah, like seeing my nephew who's 5 years old grow up, and he's all about superheroes. You know, just seeing that, you know, like at his age, we didn't have hardly any superhero movies outside of like Spider-Man.
And none of them were this quality.
No, yeah, and just all of that, you know. It's just crazy. You know, kids these days, am I right, guys?
Yeah. Well, so does that about wrap things up for us?
That wraps up this part, but the next segment, which is the last segment, is recommendations. This is the part of the show where we basically... anything that we're currently interested in, whether it be a movie, a TV show, a book, or a comic book, or something that we are currently looking at or reading or whatever, and that we would recommend other people check out, this is where we say it. So we pick one thing each. Do you want to go ahead and do the first thing?
Let's see, we already recommended Civil War, so we should do something different.
Yeah, so are you reading a book? Are you watching a thing?
I just finished reading a book. I will recommend that book. I said I was reading a lot of Star Wars. I had just finished Star Wars Battlefront Twilight Company.
Is that based off the video game? The Battlefront video game?
Not really. I mean, it probably takes some inspiration, but it doesn't feel like they're like actively paying homage to the video game. It's just about a group of soldiers who are on the front lines of the battle between the Rebellion and the Empire. It starts off just before Empire Strikes Back, goes and then starts taking place, like the first half takes place right before Empire Strikes Back, the second half takes place during Empire Strikes Back. Nice. I found it interesting, well written.
If you like to read a thing, then
If you like Star Wars, I think it's worth checking out, especially since we're kind of getting something kind of similar in Rogue One in December, where it kind of focuses not on the heroes of the war necessarily, like the big ones like Han and Luke and Leia, but it focuses on like it's going to focus on a group of rebel soldiers who don't have the Force or anything like that. I mean, it's not a perfect book, but then again, I don't think anything's perfect, so I can criticize anything at least a little bit. You just saw the stupid complaints I had Civil War.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that if you're interested in Star Wars and like to read, I think it's worth at least looking into. You can. I've seen it at like 10 different Targets for like 20% off. So
you can only buy it at Target, nowhere else.
No, you can buy it at other places, but I've seen it for on sale at Target.
Only at Target. Target, please give us money.
This video has been sponsored by Walmart.
Okay, well the thing I would recommend is, staying on topic, is Civil War, the comic book, which you can buy in trade paperback form. There's also a lot of other things, like comic tie-ins with other series that were going on at the same time, but you don't really need to read those unless you're just really into the whole thing. This Civil War storyline itself is, I think, pretty well contained in one story. Have you read that
I actually
before?
have not. I've read bits and pieces, but I have not actually sat down and read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which I know that that's kind of weird because it's not actually that long.
No, it's only a few issues long.
So it's weird that I've read parts of it, but not the whole thing. But
yeah, Civil War was, I think, the first Marvel crossover event that I ever read as a kid, and this was years back, and I always thought that would be a great movie. And when I heard that they were actually going to make a Civil War movie, I was like, wow, they're actually going to do that. And I had the idea first.
I'm sure you were the very first person to come up with that idea.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, it's a great comic. Some people aren't as huge fans of it as I am, and I can totally understand that. But I think it's pretty good, just because, I don't know, it has just about everyone there, and like the movie, it kind of represents each character pretty well, I think. And plus you get to see other characters that are not in the movie, like even like X-Men are involved in a small capacity. So yeah, I would recommend Marvel Civil War the comic. So yeah, I guess that does about wrap things up. Thank you for watching our video. It's been a little rough around the edges.
This is our first time. Be gentle.
Be gentle.
In the comment section or whatever
yeah,
we have.
Yeah, it's comments.
Okay, comment section. Be gentle.
Yeah.
If
you are interested in seeing more, please tell us. If you hate us, please tell us. We enjoy all kinds of feedback, even the bad things.
I love the bad feedback.
He loves bad stuff.
Haters gonna hate. What? Fushizzle. If we get any comments, it's gonna be on that fushizzle comment.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, these guys are stupid.
I mean, I don't deny that.
I know.
I mean, the trick in life is not to be smart. It's to trick people into thinking you're smart.
That's what you've done. You've tricked everyone into thinking you're smart. I've tricked everyone into thinking that I'm exactly as dumb as I look. Which is true. So it's not really a trick, is it?
We're not talking about anything now. We're just rambling on. So I think it's about time that we...
next week will be probably Skype. Because we live in different places, so it'll be a different format. But as an introduction, we're here together in the same room. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
Actually, we're not in the same room. I'm CG.
Yeah.
This is all Aaron Brown's opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not even a real character.
He's actually just a person that he's another faction of my psyche here, represented in fleshy form.
Bye.
Okay. Good job.